Shall we get going? Welcome to Aging Well. Really exciting. We're going to be launching the Aging Journey project, which Emily will be telling us more about shortly. Good morning, Keith from Hollingdean. And the purpose of this event, I mean, this is part of a broader event celebrating, and I think I want to use the word celebrating aging well because we've talked about this previously in the series of events we ran pre-summer. We should all be feeling very privileged to be aging. As we discovered earlier in the year, most of us on this call are old, which is always good for our egos. But we've got to an age where maybe some of our predecessors wouldn't have done. And aging well, it's making a constructive conversation. It's making a conversation that we have from an early age. We don't put our head in the sand. Aging is happening to us all every single day, and we can do it really proactively, really constructively, and we should support each other. All of these conversations for me have been so heartwarming, and it's really great to be starting these again and launching a project that's going to be focusing on that specifically, because aging is a natural part of life, but how often do we consider what's important to us as we age? This is your chance to share your experience of aging and gain insights on how you might do things differently or the same. I mean, we want to hear how you're managing your aging journey, which sounds like a really odd thing to do, but eating well, being healthy, being positive, engaging with people, being sociable. There's going to be lots of discussion on all those topics. So this online event is the start of an exciting project with Time to Talk Befriending and the University of Sussex. And we want to hear from you during this conversation. So all contributions will be really welcome. And there's another event happening later in the week, next week rather, which we'll be talking about shortly. But what I'd like to do, that's enough for the housekeeping. Please talk to us in chat. Ask questions as we go along. Don't save things till the end. All of the panelists can see your questions. So do talk to us and engage. But what I'd like to do, first of all, is welcome Emily to the stage this morning, virtual stage. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning, Lucy. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's really great that you could join us this morning for the launch of our new project called The Aging Journey. But before I explain a bit more about the project, I thought it might be really helpful for those of you who don't know me or the charity, just to tell you a brief bit about Time to Talk Befriending. So very briefly, the charity was founded in 2013 in response to the overwhelming feelings of loneliness experienced by so many older people living in our community. We undertook research in 2011, which really highlighted how people had been living quiet lives full of sadness in what is a very fast-paced world, which actually left them feeling marginalized. Many of these people grew up in a time actually when older people were respected as vessels of information and wisdom, but frequent themes in their responses to our research were, I haven't spoken to anyone in weeks and I feel invisible. Clearly this was devastating for them when we were talking to them, but the fact that they were hidden behind the four walls of their homes also seemed like a huge loss to the wider community. So really it was their voice, the voice of these people who participated in our research, combined really with a deep conviction in my heart to really do something about this serious issue of loneliness, which formed the foundation of the charity that which we're really proud to run today. From the beginning, our aim was to approach the issue of loneliness in a fresh way. We wanted to adopt a whole community response, so enlisting support from preschoolers and their families all the way through to those in their retirement, providing intergenerational opportunities for meaningful moments of connection through befriending. As a charity, we're motivated to really ensure that our older members don't feel hidden away and forgotten by society, which is really how the Aging Journey projects come about. We honestly meet amazing people every day who have a rich life history and wisdom to share, but quite often no one to share it with. And honestly, it's heartbreaking to hear older people say that they don't want to live anymore because they have no purpose. So that's why we're providing opportunities for our members and for the community through the Aging Project to have value and purpose in their later years and to feel honoured and respected rather than forgotten and invisible within society, so that they can positively contribute towards changing perceptions about ageing through various campaigns and training and research, but also to make a lasting difference, helping to build resilience in younger people as they age as well. So, to kickstart the project, we're delighted to begin the conversation today as part of the Ageing Well Festival. Shortly, we're going to hear from Kathy Warren, who is from Engaging with Ageing, and she's going to share about some of the existing negative stereotypes about ageing, really to set the scene. We're also delighted to continue to work with Lisa Chen from the University of Sussex. Lisa and I've worked together for many years now, and she's going to share today about successful ageing, drawing from cross-national research, which we're excited to hear more about. Throughout this event, there will be opportunities for all of you in attendance to share your thoughts and insights to questions about the ageing journey, as Lucy's already said, and there'll hopefully be time for other questions and answers at the end as well. I'd like to give special thanks at this point to Lucy from Always Possible for expertly hosting and facilitating the event and the group chat for us today. So thanks, Lucy. And I know you also have colleagues from Always Possible behind the scenes helping with the tech. So thanks to you guys too. There's really an open invitation to anyone attending today to continue the conversation through future workshops and group discussions. So please do look out for links in the chat about how you can get involved beyond this event. It'd be great to hear from you. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Kathy and Lisa, but I wanted to quickly finish this section by saying that, I have the privilege of showing you a video a bit later on of our scheme members, Helen, Tony and Barbara, and my hope is that you enjoy the video as much as we all do. But before we do that and before we move forward, I'd like to take a moment just to connect with everyone here really in the virtual room with us today. And I'd love to know, what is it that inspired you to attend? And what is it about the ageing journey that interests you? So what inspired you to attend? And what is it about the ageing journey that interests you? So over to all of you. And thanks again, Lucy, for facilitating the conversation.
Oh, I love these conversations. I found them so enlightening. And as you say, they are hard. It really, when you said there about the loneliness, I wonder when this changed, when those intergenerational relationships cease to have the power they used to have. I mean, I remember being so close to my grandparents and having that respect inbuilt, and it's really disheartening that somehow we lost that connection.
Yeah.
I can't quite pinpoint when that happened, and it's really sad. Nora has put the question in the chat, so audience, we'd like you to answer this. Emily and I are going to be able to tap dancing while we wait for you to do that, because we've done a couple of these together, haven't we? But it's just, I think actually it's having the conversation, it's making people aware. Because even we've got so much connectivity with social media, but then still so much blindness to what's actually happening around you. Maybe you even maybe disconnected from actually what's happening with your neighbours because you're busy on an international Twitter, conversation. Do you think lockdown has helped people engage more with their neighbours and see maybe if they have an elderly person living across the road actually supporting them a bit more? Have you seen any benefits to this?
I think Ruth has said that in her little bit in the chat. Yeah, made us see the community in a new way.
Oh, yeah, Ruth, thank you for that. No, I think I suddenly became more aware of the people around me who would need my help, whether they want to accept it or not. I mean, we don't want to insult people who are retired by thinking they can't do things. But if, picking up some milk for somebody or, just checking in on them during lockdown, because I could do online ordering where some of them couldn't do. Telling stories. Penny didn't expect to be lectured about difficulties of ageing. Oh dear, that's difficult.
Yeah.
The Zoom sessions. I'd like to discuss the question of whether or how to have the rites of passage for life stages like retiring or menopause. I suddenly finding my work department closing. Wow, there's some quite.
Yeah, I think that's something we hear about quite often, is that life stage change when you stop work and you begin retirement. And and I think you're right, Penny, menopause is something people are often talking to me about now, but it's been a very taboo subject for a very long time. And I can speak openly about that too. And it's quite nice to actually put it out in the open, because it is a big thing, definitely.
And menopause, I do respect the fact that it is finally being discussed, which is great.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't. It was just a thing that half the population went through that we just didn't talk about. So I'm, as a woman who's coming to that imminently, I'm really grateful for that it can be a conversation we can have at work. I mean, that was, people are talking about menopause leave and it being a thing that you can discuss, which is enlightening, but it's only the tip of the iceberg, isn't it, really?
Yeah. think Keith's put something in there as well. Lockdown has been tedious and does get in the way of doing interesting things. And I think especially if you're not online, there's been you really have felt disconnected. I know most of our scheme members, we've got 550 people that we're supporting, and most of those aren't online. So it's finding ways that are engaging and able to make people feel connected. And Penny's also put the word crone, and you're right, Penny, it's not a good word, and I think Kathy's probably going to talk a bit about stereotypes and negative concepts of aging.
Well, it's spinster, isn't it, or anything, and they seem to be very female oriented, the negative ones, aren't they, again, as many things. And how do we disrupt those? Kathy, you're going to be talking about that, aren't you?
got me going. Ageism on top of sexism that we get,
Well, thank you all very much for the answers.
Rights passages as well. Yeah.
Kathy, let's come to you next, because I think we've got some great responses to Emily's question as to some of the feelings we've got on the attendees here. And thank you so much for sharing and being so open. A croning ceremony instead of a 70th birthday party. Good on you, Penny. Let's embrace it. But Kathy, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you. You can hear me all right, I gather. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. Let's see if this works. Okay. Okay, we have the screen shared, so that's good news. So, good morning, everybody. Just a bit of background to me. I'm a counsellor and therapist and trainer, and I spent many years working for Age UK nationally and locally. So I've had an interest in ageing questions and ideas for quite a long time. And now I'm really doing it. A few years ago, I set up Engaging with Ageing to run workshops to help people make the most of their own ageing. So it's absolutely brilliant to be with Emily and Lisa and everybody else at the launch of this exciting project. Today, I'm going to talk about the messages that we get from the media about ageing and what impact that may have on us, and how we can challenge some of these messages and take a more creative and joyful approach to our own ageing process, maybe including celebrating some of those moments. Okay, so here are a few messages collected that some of the words and images we might see about older people in the media, so it's rather a negative picture. There's been some recent research by the Centre for Ageing Better on how older people are represented in all kinds of media in the UK. And one of their reports is called Doddery But Dear, which kind of gives you a clue to what they found. And they kind of summarise the core messages into 3 categories. So the first one is older people are presented as being kind of nice, but basically incompetent. So a lack of ability. Secondly, the ageing journey is presented as one of physical and mental decline, no mention of growth. And thirdly, there's a strong theme about so-called demographic time bomb or the grey tsunami that makes older people a burden on society. Now, for me, I've been lucky enough to have some brilliant older role models in my life who don't fit these descriptions at all. And now in my 60s, I don't see myself heading that way either. So I've wondered why they're so widespread. And the answer has to be ageism, which is both the cause and effect of these messages. And it's so widespread that the World Health Organization reported this March that 1 in 2 people in the world estimated have strongly ageist attitudes. So that's half of us. And the weird thing about it is this is the only one of the isms that is effectively a prejudice against your own future self. So there's no doubt that despite legislation in the UK to protect older people from it, ageism is alive and well in the workplace, in health, in mental health, insurance, and so on. Also volunteering even. I mean, this is a massive topic that involves all the structures in our society, so I'm not going to try and address all that now. But what I'd like to shine a light on is what is happening inside us as a result, and that is internalised ageism. So this is where we absorb negative messages and they go deep into our unconscious. They affect our behaviour and our self-esteem. So we carry a sort of burden of shame about ageing, and we feel a need to conceal the signs, and we spend a fortune on anti-aging products. But we also carry an expectation that ageing is inevitably going to lead us to be incompetent, unhappy, unwell, and also undeserving. But the good news is that we can do something about this for ourselves by challenging the thoughts that pop into our minds, which are the enemy of creative ageing. Thoughts like, I'm too old, or I should make way for younger people, or I'm having a senior moment. And we can help ourselves by questioning those dominant media messages. So let's challenge some stereotypes. The first one I'm going to challenge is the older people as burden myth. So starting with the economic case, and this is the argument about the mounting cost of healthcare and pensions. However, there's been research in the UK far back as 2011 that showed that when you put a value on activities like unpaid caring and volunteering, which older people are doing for free, then this plus their spending and taxes is worth 40 billion more than what's spent on them through pensions and healthcare. So they're making a net contribution, not a burden. And it's quite likely that older people would be doing more if they were allowed to, but sadly, ageism does mean there are arbitrary cut-offs for some things like volunteering. Then there are so many less tangible contributions that older people bring to our world. We know there's wisdom, experience and skills which you just can't get younger. We know how valuable the contribution can be to families, communities. They're often called the social glue that holds communities and families together through small acts of neighbourliness, being involved in clubs, just looking out for each other, really. And at a personal level, I can certainly say older people who've been in my life have given me something very valuable as role models, mentors, friends, inspirations. So really what I want to say is that burden message is just not true. So let's change this message to something a bit more positive. For example, how about longer lives are a triumph? Older people make economic and many other contributions to our society. Okay, moving on to the other prominent myth, which is ageing is downhill all the way, over the hill, past it. Those kind of comments, there's an assumption that we go through life on this kind of curve as we age. So improving and peaking at some point, and then a rapid decline all the way to death. Now, it may be true that things like physical fitness and strength, oops, sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen. Physical fitness might diminish, and no one would deny that there could be health challenges or aches and pains in later life. The problem is that even in these areas, the message often exaggerates this decline. Like all stereotypes, it also ignores huge differences between people. We're all aging differently. And more significantly, there's an implication that everything follows this curve. But if we move out of physical fitness realm, then things could be very different. For example, things like experience, knowledge and wisdom can be expected to increase with age. So a truer picture might be something like this slide, which might look a bit messy, but it's more representative of the variation that is reality. So for example, maybe our performance at something like acrobatics might be like the blue curve, peaking pretty young, but other things like skill at a particular craft or quality of our relationships or our compassion might look more like the green or red curves. So with that kind of image, we can take a more balanced view of where we actually are in life and say, okay, my knee's a bit stiff and sprinting has had to go, but hey, on the other hand, I'm great at pub quizzes and, my spiritual life is better than it's ever been. So maybe that's the green line and the red line. The point is we all age in our own unique ways, some things diminishing, others improving. And just to focus on losses really does distort the picture. I want to just briefly home in on the pink curve, which is like the opposite of a hill. because it might surprise some of you to know that this shape of curve fits a great deal of the research about happiness. So who'd have thought it? There's a widespread idea that old age is going to make us unhappy, but study after study shows that the most miserable times of our life are actually in our 30s and 40s, and that life gets better from our mid-50s upwards. This particular study was done in the USA, but there are many others from many different countries, and they all say broadly the same thing. On average, most of us get happier from 55 up, in spite of all the negative messages. So it does seem like the bad news about aging is getting a lot more attention than the good news in the media. So with that in mind, a couple of years ago, I asked older people on my workshops on resilience for their thoughts about what are the benefits, some of the benefits of aging, some of the things that curve up. And after they got over this kind of stunned silence as they got over the shock of this question, the ideas started flooding in. And I think I won't say all of them out loud, I'll just show them to you, maybe invite you to reflect about any of these that might ring true for you. And also to think about what benefits, strengths, qualities or opportunities have you experienced since you've grown older. I've got 2 pages of these, so I'll just leave that there. And not forgetting the bus pass, which is definitely a benefit of aging. And so my final thought is really, let's reframe later life, not as that terrible place down the hill, but a varied landscape, place of both challenge and opportunity. It's definitely not a place for sissies, as Betty Davis put it. But on the other hand, we've all learned quite a lot through our aging. So let's use it to build a rich and fulfilling later life. And in the spirit of reminding ourselves of some positives, I'd like to leave you with this question. What strengths and opportunities have you gained as you've grown older? It'd be great if you could share your thoughts on that in the chat. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, do you know what? I totally agree. Alini's come in with nothing to prove. I think in your 20s, you're so bothered about what everybody thinks, aren't you? You're so bothered about keeping up with it. And I think social media's made it worse. In my 30s, I found there was less of that. In my 40s, you know who you are and what you are, and then that's what you're working with, isn't it, Kathy? It's kind of like, I'm not going to be Cindy Crawford, unfortunately. I'm 6 foot. I'm not going to fit into little clothes, but I know my intelligence. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. And it's how you become content and expand upon those, and acceptance of your own sort of superpowers, because we do all have them. But I agree. I mean, Kathy, I was making notes about, you're right, anti-ages and anti-aging cream and anti-aging products. It's like it should be products that help you age well, or in the way that you want to age.
Absolutely.
So, but I wondered, I put a question: do you think ageism is a fear of the future, that we're scared of getting old?
Yeah, I actually think there used to be a phrase that people used when I worked in Age UK, that old age starts 20 years older than however old you are. And it's like, we never really want to get there, do we? Because I guess there is, a fear of death, I guess, is behind it all.
This is what I mean. I think it is, and I think it ends up making the relationship quite defensive, because we enter that aging is a bad thing, and then we have an attitude towards people who are older than us, which is negative, and it kind of compounds a horrible circle of negativity.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, and it's all about denial. And if we actually can be brave enough to look at it and take away all these ageist messages, sort of ignore some of the ageist messages and actually think, well, what is true for me? What is actually happening? Then I think it's, be realistic, actually accept that things are going to change, and start to address them, but then you can actually move into really enjoying all the benefits.
Well, see it as an evolution, because change feels uncomfortable. We are evolving. We are not the same person we were 20 years ago. We will not be the same person in 20 years' time. That's evolution. That's a positive thing. As you say, we may not want to go discoing till 2 a.m. anymore. That's been a long time for me. But the fine wines taste better. You might enjoy country. It's evolution. Don't lament what you're not anymore.
Absolutely, and evolution and growth and development. And one of the things that I'm sure Emily would echo is that there is growth and well-being and development and learning are still possible, really in later life, even for people that may be quite disabled in different ways.
We've got some lovely comments. We've got Ruth saying there's always another day. So is Ruth. That's all good. Shelley, I find I want to learn more and listen more so I can contribute more verbally to society. And Ruth's back with something to be grateful for. Again, look for the positives. We are being bombarded with negatives, with ageism, and it's almost a subconscious level constantly. The key thing we can do is not tune into that, is just to work. Nora, my wrinkle show, I've laughed and cried. Exactly. A well-worn, no, Nora, you do not have a well-worn face, but it's life, isn't it? Let's not Botox it so we can't smile. Let's be ourselves. And again, why can't, as a society, we just enjoy the fact that we are aging and that we have had a good life? Post-retirement, Savita's gained a BA and an MA. Good grief, wow, putting us to shame. And planning a long-distance walk. Fear of older women in our culture is related to fear of death and denial of mortality. Yeah, Penny, I think that's exactly this whole, I have a disabled elderly mother, and I think who's absolutely fine from the waist up, but a lot of the prejudice we get, I think, is fear that people think that they might end up like her. She's absolutely fine. Her legs just have their moments, but don't judge the book by the cover. A fear of not having lived a life. Savita feels healthier and fitter at 69. Yeah, Emily, I like your comment there about, that's the whole thing, is nobody lay on the deathbed and said, I wish I'd been at work more.
Very true.
Disney and the media. I think we are seeing more actresses, which are now, obviously everyone's an actor, but more female actors of all ages, with the Helen Mirrens. But I'm seeing mainly more role models for me of women in their 50s and 60s who are fantastic. Jane Fonda's in her 70s. We've got some powerful women coming through where it's not all just 20-something actresses with, the male lead being 30 years older than them. It's, I think we're seeing evolution, but it's slow, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're as old as your brain allows you to be. I like Keith.
Isn't it, Lucy?
Yeah, exactly. This is the problem.
Yeah.
We're picking them out.
Yeah.
But I think we as consumers, again, have to go and engage with those movies, don't we? And I'm really heartened to see a lot more strong female role models, and also another lockdown benefit. A lot of wonderful women who've let themselves go grey, who've just said, right, okay, I can't get to the salon, and they're actually quite surprised by how beautiful it looks. But again, it's personal choice. You've got to do what makes you feel good. So we shouldn't judge people who haven't done that or who have done it. We're very quick to judge, aren't we? That's the key thing in aging, is judging other people rather than going, this is my personal evolution. What does aging well look like for me?
I think there's also, can I say, something about our expectation, our linking well-being with perfect health. You can have a lot of happiness and well-being, even if some things, as you described with your mother, that things don't have to be perfect.
Nobody really has perfect health, and you're right with whether it's your knees or whatever. But it's kind of going, okay, what should we do about that? Should we take some oil, or Alini's unlocked her grey locks in a Vixen. Good on you. I'm getting pingy ones at the moment. I'm very privileged of not. My mum when he went grey, when I think she was in her 50s, which I call it a privilege because it just saves me money trying to think about what to do with it. But let's just embrace where we are. And if you have aches and pains, go and do something about it. For me, I think it's just being, embracing your evolution. Emily, exactly. This is it. I also think, guys, everyone goes, it's George Clooney effect, isn't it? Men have been allowed to do this for years. So we've got that sort of sexism in with ageism. I think it feels to me that we have a female panel, but it feels that women quite often get judged more harshly for getting old. Thank you, Keith. So Keith's got to go. So thank you for joining us. But I mean, Kathy, I think there's a lot to think about there about, is it anti-aging? Let's call it aging well. Let's flip it over. Let's talk about looking.
Absolutely.
Looking how you help whoever makes you happy.
Yeah.
And just taking a whole different conversation. But I think we've got a bit of a battle with the marketing companies on this one, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of money in and so-called anti-aging, and but we, the consumers, are the people who can change that, I guess.
And I think social media has made it worse. I feel there's a younger generation who have a very strange perspective of what aging actually looks like. Yeah.
Well, and about particularly on the subject of appearance, isn't it? It's so strong. And perhaps there's something about aging into appreciating wrinkles, enjoying them. And I think sort of somebody said in the chat, my wrinkles show that I've lived and smiled.
Well, that was Nora. Exactly, our laughter lines.
Oh, was it? Well done, Nora.
Our laughter lines are because we've laughed.
Yes, exactly.
And we've been out in the sun and we've enjoyed the world, and let's celebrate.
Go and paint some more wrinkles in now.
But they are a story of a life well lived. Who wants a face that doesn't move?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all that whole story's got very old over the last sort of 20 years, hasn't it? None of that existed when we were growing up. But and we've had lots. Thank you so much for everybody's comments on what strengths, opportunities you gained. Let's celebrate what we've gained, not what we feel we might have lost. So we may not be running around playing netball anymore. I was rubbish at that anyway. But what else can we do?
Yeah.
And really focus on that one. Thank you very much, Kathy. Yeah, as Penny said, a face that doesn't move is a fate to be avoided. As you say, it's a symptom of things like Parkinson's. We don't want that, but there's a whole filter society thing going on Instagram and social media that I think the youth are very affected by. I think I'm privileged to be of an age where that missed me. I don't feel that pressure, but our especially our daughters growing up, and actually our sons now, I think men are getting a lot more pressure than they used to on how they should look like. Look with their tanning and their white teeth and their Botox. It's affecting the guys too. It's horrible. We don't want a world full of Love Island clones. Wonderful. Lisa, last but not least, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Shall I just put my slides on?
Yes, please.
Screen.
We all want to tell the stories of our wrinkles now, don't we? I love that, Emily.
Okay, can you see the present? Okay. Right, thank you very much. I enjoy very much about all the text and view in the chat room. They are full of wisdoms, and that makes me feel that, yes, I really need to enjoy every moment of my life, because throughout the life course, they are different moments, different experience. So today I'm going to talk about aging well, and to be more creative about how to make ourselves aging well, or how to help the people in the society aging well. I thought perhaps it's a good idea to know about other people's perspective and to think about our own perspective and our own action too. So I will be sharing with you some example about what is aging well around the world. And my name is Lisa Chen. I'm a social worker who work with old people for many years, and I'm the lecturer in social work, and I'm the deputy director of the CSWA Research Centre at University of Sussex. So to begin with, it's quite worth to reminding ourselves that aging actually is socially constructed. How old is old? And that is constantly the question that people ask about, and also how old is old? I'm constantly asked myself as well. So it depends on and influenced by the culture and a number of factors, as well as our individual's lived experience. So my curiosity starts with, how do old adults define aging well? What people think about aging well? So according to one of the scoping review, they have gone through more than 2,000 research and selected 22 most relevant and the most rigorous research that's conducted across the East and the West globally. And what they found is the most common conception or perception about aging well is social relationships and interactions, followed by positive thinking attitude and optimistic, being healthy, financially security, and so on, including have a good death. So my question in my research is about, from all those factors, that how can we do that in order to age well? My research has conducted in 3 countries, that including England, where I work and live now, and the Netherlands, which is more similar to Scandinavia's welfare countries, and Taiwan in the Far East, where I grew up and where I came from. So the finding has, the research has included old people, start with old people, and radiating out to their families, their informal carers, their care professionals, local administrators, service provider, and national civil servants, NGO, and so on. A total of 114 participants in my research across those 3 countries, the Netherlands, England, and Taiwan. So what I found is that, echo to the scoping review finding, environment and the social policy in terms of meeting people's basic needs, basic survival, personal care, are very basic and fundamental to begin with. And also social inclusion, which is to do with social interaction and relationship, is also the factor to contribute quality of life in later life. Last but not least, most important thing is about autonomy. Not only able to say yes or no, but it's about able to make our own choice and exercise our own choice. For those 3 key factors of quality of life is relies closely on quality of care. And what we mean by quality of care are including resources, about the services, about the care staff, about volunteers, and all of those need to be work hand by hand, working together with older people and families. I'm going to show you some example from the Netherlands and Taiwan, where you might be less familiar with, perhaps. So this is the picture has been taken in the Netherlands care homes, and that enable people who live in the care home are able to access local shops whenever they want. So that is to do with the structure-wise in the Netherlands. The care home normally is a partnership with a hospital, with a day center, with home care, with shelter housing. So they are a change of a multiple different kind of care support. They working together. And also including city council as well. All the care homes are purposely built. So it's quite common in the Dutch care home that they do have a dentist center or a dentist in the care home, have a cafeteria and have a local shop, have a pharmacy in the care home, where the resident can access and the community people can come to access as well. And that is create social inclusion and the interactions. This one came from Taiwan. As you can see that wheelchair on the street is quite common in Taiwan. It's not quite common in England. Maybe I have overlooked, but it's just quite common in Taiwan in terms of able to access public space. Again, it's to do with inclusiveness, and it's to do with the living environment, friendly living environment. That all down to the resources and the partnership across older people, family, and the relevant care access to. Back to the Netherlands, if you can see it more carefully, actually people are doing different leisure activities. And what is difference is that they have many more staff and volunteers to supporting older people in comparison with one activity organizer in England normally. So human resources, manpower is very important. And similarly, recreational support and the social activity support are also quite with a lot of human resources available and contribute in Taiwan. So those are just some examples for you to think outside of the box and using that as a lens to reflect back to ourselves and to the environment that we are familiar with. So for those, my intention is I like to hear from you. You're my center points, actually. I like to hear from you about, is there anything you would like to say about aging journey from your experience that could help others as they prepare for their later years? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. If you leave your slide up there so people can answer that question just as we talk on. And Emily has put in the comment something I totally agree with, that the pavements are a challenge in Hove. People trying to get people in and out about in a wheelchair, they're very uneven. It's not just Hove. Obviously, my mum being in a wheelchair has given me an entirely different perspective of the streets and pavements and shops everywhere that we've ever lived. Not only because my mum's wheelchair can't get into many shops, let alone get around them, but people park in front of the dips in pavements. They're uneven. There's very high pavements where you just can't get a wheelchair up. And also NHS wheelchairs are pretty, they're very light, they're very lightweight, and they wobble a lot. So they're really difficult to navigate. And you can just tell that the design hasn't been done by somebody who's ever been in a wheelchair. And I have to admit, I was totally naive to that before I had to push my mum around. She now has an amazing off-roader. She invested in it, which is great, but it's still impossible to get in and out. And that is stopping her from having an experience in a town centre. She can't go by herself. But it's really difficult because it's just getting the right people engaged. I mean, you have a lot of conversations about people engaged in aging journeys or disability journeys who are neither aged or disabled. And how can they have an empathy of what it really feels like to be there? Lisa, what I was going to say is, looking at the 3 locations, it feels like there's very different approaches to aging management. Which is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, do you think there's some cultural elements to that?
I think it's a cultural element, but also it's about welfare ideology as well. So in England, it's very much focusing on independencies, and that was being presented from Kathy's earlier as well. In the Netherlands, it's very focusing on citizens' rights. See, everybody are entitled to have a good life and receive a support wherever appropriate. In Taiwan, it's the mixture of the Dutch model about people's rights, but also about solidarity and the collectivities. That is the culture and ideology of welfare in Taiwan. So apart from the bus pass, it's free in Taiwan for people who age above 55. Lifelong learning is free as well in Taiwan for people age above 55.
Wow.
That is just an echo to one of our audience about, I'd like to learn more.
Yeah.
And we have a saying in Chinese about, we learn until we die.
But I totally agree, because it's also proven to keep your brain healthy, isn't it, for a better quality of life?
Yes.
Yeah, that brain activity is incredibly essential. But that's amazing that you have access to that education.
Yeah, it's free. Yes. Yeah. So it's also to do with in England, the aging care is predominantly provided, being supported by health and social care. But in the Netherlands and Taiwan, the city council, especially the building department, they are strongly involved. So they plan about the building need to be purpose-built, and also the location of access, the care center, community center is all well planned. It's need to have a plan permissions about the locations. So again, it's about a partnership and it's about resources.
Yeah, and I thought about that when that slide came up. Is we see a lot of sort of blocks of flats for the elderly popped at the edge of a town or a village. They're not integrated. It's difficult to get to the shop, as you say, or go to the doctors. All these little things that when you're able-bodied, you can just, it might be a 10-minute walk for us. That could be half an hour for somebody, but they want to be, fit and active. They want to be out and doing it, but we have to make it easier. No, it does seem quite disconnected as a conversation. And I was going back to on the chat, Penny, what promotes aging well is good for the whole community. Absolutely. Emily's already agreed with that. It is just, it's a community. I think that's Lisa, is what you're saying, is when it works well, it's because it's a community conversation, not almost a box ticking fixing conversation. There's a dynamic there that's a bit wrong, isn't there?
I think it's about awareness rather than me, the other. Yeah.
So Emily, you're going to learn the cello. Just reading through the chat here. Good on you with that. I like that. But Ruth, take a risk when trying things and meeting a new hobby. This is it. Do you know what? Sometimes that can feel really scary to just get out there and try something. And again, let's take any positive we can from lockdown. Is a lot of these groups of meetups are still online. So if there's a thing you've been thinking about trying to do, if you have the ability to be online, then that's a great way to go. And Steph, as you're right, the care homes in the UK are so varied, and this is a big cost, isn't it? Is aging well should not be the preserve of the rich. That's as you say, but Lisa, we're looking at Taiwan and Netherlands, it being seen as something that we all share responsibility for because we're all going through it. It's yeah. And Alini, we're not going to get into politics, but you're not wrong. And the Savita, the percentage of people over 55 compared to wheelchair, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think actually a wheelchair challenge, I think, will relate to any age, wouldn't it? It doesn't matter what age you are. It's very difficult to actually be out and about in any town. Nora, is it easier to start new hobbies as you grow older? I think finding time is going to always be a problem if you're busy, isn't it? But I agree with Lisa, the whole idea of you should always keep learning, always keep that brain activity and learning the cello, as Emily will be. Next time we do this, Emily will be opening our sequence with the cello playing. Actually, it's been proven that, I'm not thinking she's up for that. It's been proven that actually music and languages are two of the best things for keeping your grey matter healthy, isn't it? That's the key thing. If we don't use it, nationwide, U3A, I've not heard of them, lots of hobbies. So, and again, there's lots of this online. Come on, YouTube's wonderful. If you want to learn how to do a thing, there's someone who can help you do that. And then you can find your local group, find your local meetup and use it as a way to start conversations. Because I think that's great, is having that shared engagement. And if you're making a thing or playing a thing, that's wonderful. Lots of physical activities, but yeah, physically getting to them, buses, I mean, you can get into all those sorts of services as well. Yeah, I agree with Nora that this sense of community that we have developed through lockdown, which I think has been one of the really positive things about thinking locally and seeing around that what's around us. I think it's with us, and Emily, I think your project launch is perfect for this. It's with us to keep this, isn't it? So I think that's why this is such a great time for your launch of your project, is because we've got a bit of an energy going and we can't let it slip back to our potentially, in more inward thinking new normal. We don't want that. I think we're all very passionate. I think we're an echo chamber on this call, and we all agree that's not going to happen, but we need to go out there and inspire some people. And yes, yeah, well, Emily said, Emily, you can read out your comment, go on.
I was just going to say, for those that aren't online, what we found during the pandemic is doing telephone groups. And we invited a local music group called Music for Connection to come along. And they played the cello and strings and were singing it. And people were playing the teacups and the comb. And people were like, I haven't laughed like this for a long time. It brought them such joy. So there are also other ways to engage. It's just being able to offer those and finding out what the gaps are and knowing, like you said, the resources.
And reach people. I mean, we've talked about technology poverty, but also my in-laws who are both in their 70s, just laptops, they've been on training courses. It's just not for them. So how do we reach those people? But they still do read the local magazines, the local papers. There's we've just got to make sure we get the message out and start getting that confidence together, as people are really keen to meet up in person. If we can do that in a safe way, in village halls, there's lots of hopefully community spaces, that's going to be important going forward, isn't it? But Emily, we've gone off down a tangent, haven't we, of playing music but you know what, laughing is a really key thing that I feel none of us feel we've done enough of, and that's what builds relationships, is having fun together.
Definitely.
And on
you
top
got
of
good old
that,
competitive bingo is always fun. Go on, Lisa.
yeah, on top of that, I think social contribution and being able to help is very important for some people too. So I learned a great deal from many older people that not because you're old, so you can't help other people. Actually, on my visit as a researcher, I visit one older people who have several long-term health illness. And she stopped me during my interview because her PA came to the house. She said, I have to make another appointment with you because I'm going to be a volunteer now. So, hey ho, I think it's all to do with people's attitude and what people want their life to be like, but also about whether they have people surrounding us to supporting us to achieve our aim, our goal, and the way we want to be in our life.
I think that links in really nicely to what Kathy's about, having purpose. We all need to get up and have a purpose to life, don't we? That doesn't change. Emily, over to you. Penny, I apologise for not being very clear what the new project is, but Emily's going to now enlighten you on what that is and what we're doing.
I'm going to try, but brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Kathy and Lisa, for your brilliant contributions. There are things that I didn't know. I love the smile curve, and there's a lot I took out of that. And thank you, everyone who's here as well, for kindly engaging with us about these important questions and topics. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, and maybe I should have started with this, is to tell you a bit more about the Aging Journey project. But really, the inspiration is the hundreds of amazing older people that we've met and encountered over the years at Time to Talk Befriending, who really do have rich life history and wisdom to share, but quite often absolutely no one to share it with. So the Aging Journey project is going to be over the next couple of years. The University of Sussex, Engaging with Aging, and some other partners, we're going to engage with our members at the charity and others who are interested in the community in a range of series of focus groups, workshops, interviews, and we're going to be co-producing questions and insights and looking at the wisdom that we can share with younger generations about how to age well. And we really want to sort of ask people about the creaks, the stuff that, you know, you perhaps don't necessarily feel comfortable always asking, you know, the real life stuff about, you know, what it means to age well, what people want to impart to the younger generation. And we want to start changing the perception about what older people are actually really like, because they are amazing, and as Kathy's already spoken about, give so much value to society and our communities and to us as individuals. So in a very brief nutshell, that's what it's about. But if you would like to find out more and have a wider conversation outside of this, I'll put a link in the chat about how you can contact us, and I'd be very happy to have a conversation. But it's a 2-year project with lots of different opportunities for people to be involved in group discussions if you'd like to be, and part of that kind of information gathering and design of what the project's going to be overall.
And that first group discussion is going to be a workshop online, isn't it? Which will be
yes.
in November. You were thinking of, wasn't it? So if you're interested now, there's the link. Get involved, get in contact, and that first group discussion, which will be virtual, you can be a part of it, because it's a conversation, isn't it? Not a
yeah.
Yeah.
And we will be involving younger people in these conversations as well. It's going to be very much co-produced, and our scheme members will be sort of almost encouraged to be peer trainers, to, you know, share their wisdom in settings with a lot of our school partnerships. So there's a lot of exciting things involved, but there's also campaigns about this changing perceptions and raising awareness. So it's got quite big aims, but we're really excited about it, and we feel it's, you know, really important, and it's definitely what our members are telling us that they want and need. So actually it feels like a real privilege to introduce you to some of these exceptional people today. In August, I I met with a very talented filmmaker, Lydia Shellin-Walker, and together we visited scheme members Helen, Tony and Barbara, and we asked them a series of questions. And the film we're about to play captures their responses, which I really hope that you enjoy. So actually Annie Marie from Always Possible is going to kind of play the film for us, and then we'll come back together after that. What does a good day look like for you?
An incredibly beautiful sunrise.
Good weather.
Me getting out, me going and meeting a friend.
Being open to sort of share things with other people.
Telephone calls to friends and a sense of achievement at the end of the day.
When I come back having done that, I feel I've had an injection of health.
What lights you up and brings the most joy in your life at the moment?
The gift of passing on knowledge.
The telephone.
I like people.
Sharing each day with other people.
I can get in my car and just go into the village, go into one of the 2 cafes, and there would always be people there to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Has creativity played a role in your life?
Apart from classic girls commercials, we were both very, very keen on actual classical music. Well, it can be a great comforter, I suppose, in many ways, because if you are feeling down or whatever, it tends to act as quite a lift.
Well, I had a career in the theatre. They discovered, and I discovered, that I was able to play comedy. And then I played opposite Spike Milligan, so I learnt from the beginning right the way through.
I occasionally write poetry. I've always been inspired by beautiful sunrises and sunsets, deep blue sky and sea, colourful flowers and blossoms, autumn leaves and the changing seasons and the new appearances in spring.
What's the best thing about ageing?
Learning to say no.
The care, compassion and commitment of old friends I have known for years and the ones I have made through time to Talk Befriending.
What would a difficult day look like for you now?
Stormy, wet weather, which means I can't go out and I'm at home all day.
2 years ago now, when I lost my partner, I had about 4 falls here. I managed to break 3 bones in my foot. It's taken me 2 years to learn to walk again.
But if I think a day is going to be difficult, and we all have them, I'm proactive. I won't sit here, I will go out. And if you're with somebody, it breaks it.
To accept that you're not perhaps going to get, in my case, back in your feet when you thought you were going to. Sort of takes time and, a certain amount of determination.
What would you say was the most challenging thing about ageing?
Learning, I suppose, that one is not going to get any younger, so to speak, and basically learning how to cope with it, how to live with it, and just making the best of when they don't quite go according to plan.
Declining health is definitely the most challenging thing about ageing. And the inability to do things that we used to take for granted. I can't go running now, I only walk slowly.
Do you have any advice for the younger generation?
I would love to be able to encourage younger people to enter activities, hobbies, friendships, you name it, that can take them through life, not ones that are what I call a 5-minute wonder. I think it's so beneficial to have, at my age, 1 or 2 people who I've had through my life. I find that, and it's so comforting, because you don't have to dot I's and cross the T's, because they know you so well.
have a sense of purpose and plan each day.
Yeah.
Set goals, get started and keep going. Take one step at a time and record your achievement. Reward yourself and share time with a friend.
And is there anything else you'd like to say about the ageing journey from your experience that could help other people prepare for their later years?
And always take your time on things. There's no need to rush.
It is up to the person who is on their own to actually stretch out a hand, not to Tom, Dick and Harry, but if you say, I'm on my, you know what I mean, I'm on my own and nobody cares, nobody is going to care.
Look after your health. Many of us do not appreciate good health until we no longer have it.
Accept things for what they are.
Stretch out your hand. I think there are things out there, even in old age, that are there for you.
Enjoy outdoors, sleep well, and be thankful for what you have.
There's good advice to us all in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I'll ever get tired of listening to Helen, Tony and Barbara, to be honest.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, I've already taken on board some of the things they've said to help me in my aging journey, but also by asking the questions and hearing their responses, it made me think about, what brings me the most joy in my life at the moment. Sometimes life's busy, you don't think about these things, especially compared to when I was younger. So I think the final question, Lucy, that I just wanted to ask everyone today, if they're willing to share it. So I'd love to know what your answers would be to, what brings you the most joy in your life now, and what brought you the most joy in your life when you were younger. And obviously, if you've got any comments about the video as well, I mean, I just think they're wonderful. And we've got, well over 500 people like Helen, Tony and Barbara who would love to engage in this and to learn from and hear from. So yeah, over to you. What brings you the most joy in your life now? And what brought you the most joy in your life when you were younger?
I think it's really important. It's about what recharges your batteries and what drains them. I think I've really focused on that over the last 18 months as to when your energy levels ebb and flow, what has drained that energy from you? Should we ask the panel? Should we be cruel, Emily, and pick on the panel?
Yeah.
Kathy, come on. What brings you the most joy in your life now? What brought you joy in your life when you were younger?
Oh gosh, I should have prepared for this, shouldn't I? My answer is what brings me the most joy is connecting with friends, really. Connecting with friends and being in nature and being near the sea, all that sort of thing. What brought me the most joy earlier on? I think it was more achievement oriented earlier on. I think it was more like being able to pass something or win an award or something like that. Those kind of things. My cycling proficiency test was a good one.
Lisa, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, so my life achievement so far has been, or enjoyment has been, being able to be with friends and the family. Especially, I am very grateful about being with friends and the family, even I'm far away from my friend because I'm living in the UK. I have many friends back home, really. But when I was really down, they supporting me. And that made me feel that I'm not alone, which is great. And that has been the greatest enjoyment throughout my life. So what I used to enjoy when I was younger, again, is friends and family. I'm not like a Catholic that is hunting for the achievements. By thinking about it, I don't have much award or the scholarship, really. No, that's not something I'm yeah, that was not my priority. Friends, family, and that is how I spend good quality of time, and looking forward to wake up next day.
I like Alini's comments here about when you're younger, dreading being alone, and being older, loving your own company. There is a comfort that comes with aging, whereas I think, but I totally agree with both Lisa and Kathy, friends, how much I'd missed. Yes, you could talk to them on the phone, but going and actually having a breakfast with a friend and how high you feel. But Emily, go on. I was going to say that links in really properly to what you were saying at the beginning, of so many of your members haven't got that connectivity.
Exactly. And I think that's why befriending through the pandemic especially has been talked about more than ever before. And, you know, we see the mutual benefits of it so evidently in all that we do. But I think that's something else to say about this project. Is we want to start talking about loneliness in the context of aging early, because we see what happens at the chronic end, you know, where people just don't want to live anymore because they feel so lonely. But we're all saying friends are important. So, you know, it's beginning just to talk about it from an earlier age, so we can be thinking about the things we need to do to prepare. I mean, sometimes people outlive their family and friends, and that's also very, very sad. But again, the resources and knowing where people can connect, really important.
I love the lady said you have to reach out. If you're by yourself, you have to be brave and reach out, and just make that first connection. Obviously, you are the place to reach out to get involved and say, hey, I'm. But admitting being lonely is also a thing that we don't like doing as humans.
Yeah, but my husband liked to be alone.
Very different though, to be alone, know it in nature. Loads of people have talked about just being outside and connected to nature. Maybe not today as it's torrentially raining out there, but I think appreciating time is something that maybe comes with age. I think at the beginning in your teens, your 20s, I think Kathy, you're right, you're busy wishing your day away, aren't you? Got to get to the next thing, got to get to the next thing. You're forever living in tomorrow. And I'm finding more and more just living in this moment is really important, and just enjoying what we have and being grateful for what we have. And if you're not happy with it, reaching out to people, like jumping in muddy puddles. We could definitely do that today, Ruth. That's definitely there. But I think the joy of nature and the simple things is just, you know, communicating, it got Savita with children and grandchildren, and being out in the open air is a real theme that everyone's got here. But Emily, how do you find when people come and join the Time Talk Befriending? Obviously you have the people at both sides. How do you get those conversations going and build confidence in maybe someone who hasn't engaged with somebody for weeks?
To be honest, when someone's first referred to our service, they're usually at a crisis point where they are so desperately lonely that they're really seeking that companionship. So there isn't that awkwardness about wanting to build relationship. And a lot of the groundwork we do before we match people is based on hobbies and personalities and interests. So there's already that kind of initial connection that's the starting point. And it's just amazing. One lady, you know, during the pandemic said, I can't believe how having an invisible friend over the phone could make her feel more fulfilled. And I think, you know, even just one guy in his review, he has a visit 45 minutes once a fortnight from someone in their lunch break. And he said, I'd rather go without food than that visit from that befriender. And that's quite heartbreaking, to be honest. 45 minutes once a fortnight is not a lot of time, but for him, that was just so valuable. So yeah, it's such a privilege to be able to provide those opportunities for connection.
And have numbers really increased over the last couple of years?
We doubled in size in 4 months in the pandemic. Wow. Between April and July, we supported an extra 230 older people and the same number of volunteers. It was just extreme. But the great thing was, these are people that were perhaps hidden before, maybe went out once a week to a lunch club, but were feeling really lonely the rest of the time. And so through the emergency hubs at the council, were able to connect with us. And now it's great. But you were saying about getting people out, you know, that's a massive thing for us, because most of our members are, you know, quite housebound, have a lot of health conditions. And we've just been planning our group events, and what was quite a big task before with transport and getting people out, it's even bigger now, and it's a huge expense, but people are so excited and overjoyed about meeting each other. There's a real before it was I don't mind what age my volunteer is, or, you know, what connections I make, but actually people want to meet like-minded people their own age. So our groups are going to be really integral for that.
Have you got an in-person one planned? Is that in the diary yet?
We've got 3.
Yay!
Yay! in 3 different locations every month now, which is amazing. But it's going to be quite epic, and the transport is pretty epic. But it's going to be so worth it. Honestly, I can't wait to share about that another time.
But I mean, Ruth's right. There's always a way to connect. It is just finding how. Tea and cake. Nothing's not better without tea and cake, is it? But just simple things. But that energy in a room and just seeing people's faces, and the energy you physically get from somebody who's sat opposite you that we don't get on this screen. We're talking about this before we went live, and it's just not the same. But it has been better than nothing. So a blend of both is going to be really, really powerful. Do you need more volunteers? Is that one of your challenges now?
We do. So people are really keen to begin to have face-to-face home visits as well. And most of our volunteers are working age, so they prefer the telephone because it fits with life commitments, which we understand. But yeah, face-to-face volunteers, we definitely need lots of those across Brighton and Hove, Ada and Worthing, where we work. Yeah.
So that's a call to action for anybody listening, is please,
Yes,
if you know anybody,
yeah.
please, but also spread the message, because also there's the other angle of people who want to help don't know where to start, or what good help looks like, or what time commitment will be. As you say, it's 45 minutes every other week. It's a minuscule amount of time, and if it is local and in person, then again you'll coordinate. Go on, Kathy.
Well, I was just going to say, I am now on volunteer with Emily's organisation as well. So, and I just want to say there's great rewards for volunteers as well. You know, it's not just about giving something. It's you know, I just think that it's bridging that gap between generations, I guess.
Yeah. Some of my best friends are in their 90s. And I think, Lisa, you did some research with us and got some feedback from volunteers. They used certain words, didn't they? I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about how to connect is a big question. And that is what the aging journey is about for this project, that we want to hear and share the experience from one another, between one another. And we want to draw the experience to learn the wisdom about how to gain such an experience, or how to overcome some challenge that people are experiencing. So in terms of how to connect, I was thinking about during the lockdown, we have our street, the whole street from house number 1 to the end of the house of street, we suddenly just have a WhatsApp group. And then for people who don't have a WhatsApp group, no access, neighbor do knock the door to check whether the neighbor is all right. And I hope this will be carried on. So that there is something about how to connect, and it's quite innovative way. So I hope the Aging Journey project will have the opportunity to have a collectiveness of great and creative, innovative ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right. It's not everybody has a phone with that kind of level of connectivity. But again, if it's street by street, the Facebook groups have always, you know, obviously it's online as well, but Facebook groups have really got a lot more engaged and active, haven't they? There's lots more conversations that have started, but it's everybody's responsibility to keep them going. And that's my real worry now, is that we do kind of sort of wing back in. So Emily, with your project launching now, and is that the key kind of coming to the end? So I really wanted to get the key takeaways for your project and the key next steps.
Yeah, the next steps are contact us if you would like to be part of ongoing conversations about what, you know, like some of the questions we've already asked in the video and asked today. But we also want to design questions with younger people, with, you know, people of all ages, about what they want to find out, so that we can then be very I think innovative in some ways about sharing this information, sharing this wisdom. The end goal is to produce resources and training and campaigns based on all the information we've gathered from people here today, our members, younger people, through workshops, focus groups, interviews, that kind of thing. So if people are interested, contact us. I'll put the link back in, or maybe Nora might kindly do that. I will contact you, let you know when the next session group discussion online will be, probably towards the end of November, and you'll be invited to take part in that and be part of the wider conversations over the next couple of years.
And what's really important there is you're not making assumptions. Again, back to the thing that we've all talked about, it's not making assumptions about what people, retired, LD, aging, whatever we want to sort of put this out. Don't make assumptions on what good looks like.
Yeah.
you'll want to do things differently and mix it up, and it'll be different things for different people. I mean, Kathy, I also loved your curves, all the different things we get good at and get bad at. And some people, we talked about this before in previous ones, you might have somebody who's 90 going skydiving, and somebody else who is wheelchair bound. It's not a one size fits all. This is a massive demographic we're talking about here, and there could be multiple streams.
Definitely.
And there should be. I mean, this is it. I think that's probably the most offensive thing is Gen Z, Generation X, whatever it is. They love putting us all in segments, don't they? And it's like star signs. We're all identical because we were born in April. That's not the way it works. So don't do the same with the aging population. Go on, Kathy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, just what you said about it's not, everybody finds their own things. And I think sometimes this skydiving 103-year-old can kind of put people off because we think that's what aging well is. And you think, oh, that's what I should be aiming for. But for some people, it might be, having a book group or whatever. It's, a community. But yes, it's absolutely not one size fits all. It's about opportunity and connection, and making it possible for people to actually build connections in the way that we've all been talking about, and the way that Lisa's shown in her presentation, the different ways that social environments encourage connections, and we can do it with our WhatsApp groups in our local streets, perhaps.
And we're just as individual a person today as we will be at 70 or 80. We'll have different priorities, different inspirations. Getting that poem finished, looking at the lady in your video, Emily. We right now have exactly the same issue, no matter where we are. It's actually a challenge of finding those people who we want to go and have breakfast with, who become our friends. That takes time, whatever age you are. And I think you probably get more picky with age as to who you will use your time with. I think, again, maybe that's a 20s to now period, is you're just happy to have, a million friends on Facebook, and suddenly you whittle it down and go, here are the 6 people I love being with, and how do I find more time with them? And as per the lady on the video, it's like making sure you do make time to be with them and talk to them and write them letters and engage, because life can be lonely at any age. It just becomes harder when we're working. We happen to meet more people. We have a numbers game, don't we? If we're in an office full of 100 people, we might find a couple who have similar kind of likes and dislikes to us. Suddenly, if we're not seeing those people, how do we make those connections? And I think the time to befriending is definitely that. But I think going out there and having the confidence to try different groups, whether you can do it online or go in person. I know my mother is horrified at the idea of going to some of these groups, but again, we ought to walk in and we have to try them, don't we? And you might find some great, it's being brave, put yourself out there. I think everybody, hopefully we've inspired of it. Oh, Penny's had to leave us. Thank you very much for joining, Penny. Thank you for all your feedback. I think we've had some wonderful contributions. What I've really loved is everyone's honesty. I think the key thing is we are all very passionate about this conversation, about making it constructive, aren't we? And Emily, I love what you do. I can also hear how painful it is to see what people are going through, but you're making an impact. That's why you do this, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It just feels like a privilege. I still remember the first people I ever met at our first consultation, and these are people that couldn't get out without a lot of help. And I remember a table of neighbours. 2 people lived 4 doors from each other. They hadn't seen each other in 3 years, and they were crying at just how sad that loss of time was. And there was just this buzz of excitement in the room about the fact that they could reconnect. It was just so powerful, and yeah, it feels like a real privilege. And I think this whole project, where we really focus on the value of people, and really engage with our older members. You've just seen 3 people today, but honestly, there's so many more. And so it's going to be a real joy to do that, and to be able to engage with our younger partners as well. It's quite an exciting project. We've got quite big aims, but it's great to start this conversation today.
Big aims, but really great track record and history of it. You're going to make this happen. We look forward to having an update. We'll have to do a revisit, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so grateful for Kathy and Lisa for being part of that. And I know Ruth, who's in the chat, is also going to be part of it. So yeah, and others hopefully today who might feel inspired in wanting to have further conversations. That'd be amazing.
Those who are listening must get involved. Obviously in the Possibility Club, we've been having a conversation about this for almost a year, Lisa. We did the first one of these almost a year ago. And we've had it's a very constructive, as is the energy of all of these, really constructive conversation about talking about things we don't talk about. That's the theme we've had, isn't it, over the last year, is we're going to talk about aging, we're going to do it constructively, and we're going to have a tangible impact on our society. So there you go. Annie Marie's put the link up for the Possibility Club. Come and get involved. Come and tell us what you're thinking, what you're seeing. We've posted a lot of our news articles, actually pulling up totally on some of the things that Kathy brought, some of those negative news articles, and also some brilliantly disruptive articles of people just not accepting the narrative, which is again a key point of this, isn't it? The negative narrative, we're having none of that. Now I'm just going to put the screen up so we make sure I'm going to the slides just to make sure that people come to the next pieces. Bear with me. Oh, I'm doing well today. Anyway, come to the next slides. What we've got, thank you to Emily and to Lisa and to Kathy. And on Monday, we've got letters from lockdown. So that's Monday morning. I will stop sharing because my technology is not being nice to me today. And we shall share the link for Monday where we're going to talk about letters from lockdown. And again, some of that is just people going through their journeys during lockdown. And that's going to be delivered by academic staff and students from University of Sussex. It's an interactive session looking at a new project, including plans for the future. So it's all around letters, responses, and creative writing to combat isolation and loneliness during the pandemic. So Emily, very much key linked into this of, we talked about letters, didn't we, on your videos, I used to love getting a letter, good post. So even sending somebody a card or a parcel or a post, let you know that you're thinking of them.
Yeah, in our research with the University of Sussex, actually, that we gathered during the pandemic, actually, it was the regular cards, letters, newsletters that actually people kept saying repeatedly. It created a sense of belonging, like I belong to a community that cares and someone's thinking of me. And yeah, it's brilliant. So yeah,
the joy of good post. It doesn't have too much, sending a postcard on your holiday or something like that. Again, it means so much more than an email.
Yes,
you may be saying the same thing, all those little thoughts. So think of people in your life and make sure that whether it is your parents or grandparents, whatever it may be. And you know what? Post is even great if you're a little person. Actually, post is great for any age. Just ways of communicating. Don't think it's all about online. I think that's a really key theme from this. I think we're wrapping up for the morning. Anything else from the panel before we wrap up?
No, just thank you to everyone who's come today.
Well, thank you to the panel. And Emily, thank you so much for sharing your exciting new project. I can tell you're really excited to get started.
I am. I think Lisa wanted to say something.
Go, Lisa.
Emily, can you just say about how to contact you verbally, just in case that people don't have access on the chat room, please?
Yes. So this is online. Well, I can give you our telephone number as well, but we have a contact us page on our website. That would be the best way to contact us. So there's either a direct email address or there's a form. And
if you just your website address.
Oh, good point. It's www.tttb.org.uk. So that's tttb.org.uk. Or if you want to call us and leave a message, we'll call you back. It's 01273 737 710. So 737 710.
Well done. Last time I had my telephone number out on one of these, I forgot it, which is good. So well done, Emily. Thank you all very much for the attendees. Thank you to the panel. Again, a wonderful discussion, and I hope we've inspired you, given you some food for thought. Kathy and Lisa, wonderful slides, really inspirational. Have a great rest of your day.